I see some people are joining us on the Zoom room. We're going to get started very, very shortly. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, we'll be starting in a minute or two. I also see we just went live to Facebook. So if anyone's watching us, just sit here for now. We will be getting started in 1 minute. All right. I think we're just about ready to get started. Thanks to everyone I see rolling into the Zoom room. We're now live on Facebook, so thank you for joining us on Facebook. My name is Jonah Gelfand. I am one of the conference coordinators here at the Social Vision Conferences. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the third Social Vision Conference. We've done a few in the past year, and we're very excited to have another one coming forwards in this week, focusing specifically on interconnectedness and exploring that topic. Social Vision the conferences are based on a book by sociologist Phil Wexler, and it's exploring the thoughts of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson in relationship to social action, social change, and more broadly, how Jewish spirituality can impact social action and changing ideas of society going forwards. For any more details for the rest of the conference program, for registration links, you can find that on our website, interconnectedness.net, which I will put in the chat after I finish speaking. We have a great panel coming up right now. We have 2 more panels coming up later today at 1 p.m. and 2:15. All of this is on East Coast time. We also have 3 more days of programming, so please join us for those days as well. Invite your friends if you like what you saw today. Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you're working with these days. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Rabbi Benjamin Murray to introduce our first speaker of the day.
Welcome, I'm Rabbi Benjamin Murray. My wife and I are Chabad emissaries to Middlebury, Vermont, and its surrounding community. I have the privilege of interviewing Nigel Savage, the founder of Hazon. He's from London, currently living in Israel, and he was the CEO of Hazon for 21 years. He stepped down just this past July, and Hazon has became the largest environmental organization in the American Jewish community. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you, Nigel. Thank you so much. I'd like to just start off opening up. You recently read the book, and do you have any initial impressions or reactions?
Yes, so first of all, Rabbi Murray, I just want to say hi, and I want to say thank you for having me. I'm incredibly thrilled to be here. I'm incredibly honored to be here. I'm not myself a Chabadnik, but I want to give out a shout out to a couple of people who have influenced me over the years. As a kid, I occasionally went to Lubavitch summer school in Manchester when Rabbi Chaim Farrow was running it. And skip forward, my sister is a Chabadnik and is very involved in Shul by the Shore in Long Beach, California. And so I want to give a shout out to Rabbi Perlmutter, and I want to give a shout out to Chayalea Sufrin, who leads Long Beach Hillel, and I think she's really one of the Chabad leaders in the Hillel system. He was one of the great rabbis and teachers of this generation. So I say that just in a personal sense for being so happy to be here. And the second thing that I want to say is that I'm sad actually that I never met the Rebbe. I guess theoretically had the chance. When I had the chance, I wasn't interested. But it is clear that the question for all of us at some level is, what is the relationship between Jewish tradition on the one hand and living in the real world that we're engaged in on the other? And we took as Hazon's theme quote this line, which in fact I heard from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, who was, I guess, one of the Rebbe's first two shluchim, who said, the Torah is a commentary on the world and the world is a commentary on the Torah. The Torah is a commentary on the world and the world is a commentary on the Torah. And I think that's really profound. And it's really interesting what he meant by that. And I think he meant probably three things. Firstly, that the Torah, meaning Jewish tradition, is a commentary on the world, meaning everything else, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and that those things are a commentary on Jewish tradition. Secondly, that the Torah is a commentary on the physical world, and the physical world is a commentary on the Torah. And thirdly, that the Torah, in a sense, is a commentary on our lives, and our lives are a commentary on the Torah. And so that's how it is that we're living in this moment where the world is beautiful and amazing, but also incredibly challenging, incredibly intense. We've just come through this incredibly intense summer. Climate crisis and climate change is no longer abstract. It's 116 degrees in Canada. It's heat waves in Portland. It's people dying from extreme weather events. And the question for us is how we put those pieces together. And so I want to go back to you for a sec before I say anything else, but in a sense, perhaps just to hear from you, from your perspective as a shliach in Middlebury, how you think about the relationship between Jewish tradition and the world that we live in, and especially in relationship to what it is to live lightly on the world.
Thank you. I think a lot of interesting things you brought up, and I want to explore them. But first, to answer your question, from my perspective, the relationship between Jewish tradition and the real world is one, as you said, there's a reciprocity, a bouncing back and forth between the two. You can look at different examples in halakha, for example, where our relationship with modernity and different technology that are coming up is bracketed and is within our own tradition. And the question is, how do we navigate some of these different realities that didn't exist 100 years ago? That's a very practical application of how our tradition interplays with the world. I think a fundamental way that our tradition interplays with the world is from a teaching from the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem, coming from his teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, of the different aspects of creation, the domim, the mineral, soils, the sameach, the plant, vegetation, chai, the animals, the living creatures, the medaber, the humans. And what is the purpose of these four different levels, and how do we interrelate to one another? And it's really amazing that in our generation, we have seen the ability to take domim, soils, minerals, turn them into screens, and communicate instantaneously around the world. It's an incredible thing. It was taking place earlier, first with the advent of radio, and something the Rebbe spoke about, the importance of using technology in ways that will bring Torah and Judaism more into the world, bring the Torah's teachings more into the world. So I see this relationship of tradition and the real world, the world in which we live, as something that is changing, and there's more and different ways we can interact with it. To bring it into the context of Shemitah, we ourselves now are in the Shemitah year. You yourself are in a Shemitah year. I'm in Chutz La'aretz, so it's also Shemitah year here, but the implications on our daily life are very different. But it says that Shemitah actually has an advantage over Shabbos. The Rebbe says this in a Sicha and Parshas Bahar, and the advantage is on Shabbos that Shemitah should be a Shabbos for the land, because the land should rest from plowing and sowing. Other agricultural prunings, other agricultural pursuits. And that's the rest. The rest is for the land, but the person themselves are involved in studying Torah, of deepening our relationship with God. And then there's a detachment also from where are we getting our sustenance from? If we can't work the soil for this year, where is that coming from? In order to get to this Shemitah year, for 6 years, you have to work. And also in the 7th year, you can still be involved. There's still work that we can do, but it's a different form of work. It's a way for all of us as a society and also as the farmers to see that ultimately everything comes from God. And I wanted to ask you, I realized now that I didn't answer your second part about climate change and living lightly. So let me first do that. So I don't want to leave anything off. I could say from my own perspective, my wife and I try to live as much as we can lightly while we're serving students and people in the community. And sometimes it comes in different forms. Right now, we're building a passive solar greenhouse in our backyard to be able to teach Torah there throughout the winter and grow food. And we try to put the small plot of land we have here in Middlebury into production to grow food for us and the community here. In my personal perspective, I think us figuring out how to adapt our lives as the climate changes is the approach that I personally focus more on. That in order for the food that I'm growing for my family not to be wiped out because of there's a storm here or it's getting hot there or there's no rain here, so that I need to figure out how to grow, whether it's with vertical farming or aquaponics or different gardening methods. I have to figure out how to do it here. And what's going to work for me here is not going to work for someone who's living in Africa. It's not going to work for someone who's living in Latin America. Every biosphere, really every watershed is a different biosphere. And we have to learn how to work with our community in that area. And we also need to have the global approach of how to work around the world. But that's my short answer.
So Kala Kavodan, let me then, if I may, take that and sort of run with it a little bit. And I'm going to say a few things and then you'll come back.
Sure.
So it's really interesting. If we think about the environmental crisis, there are two different sorts of ways that we can respond to it. And one of them is practical. One of them is the question is, do I drive a car? Do I ride my bike? Where does my food come? What's my carbon impact? So on and so forth. And there I think every single human being on the planet who has some sense of awareness, we each of us have a moral obligation to try and reduce our carbon impact and to live more lightly on the planet. And I don't think that Jewish people have a distinct, I don't think there's any difference between, as it were, a Jew flying less than anybody else flying less, though I think it is possible that we would argue that the tradition requires us or expects of us to try and live well. But that's on one side. The second question, and the question that to me is really fascinating, is what does it conceivably mean to be Ola Goyim, right? What does it mean to be a light unto the nations? What does L'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to renew the world as the divine realm, mean at this particular moment in human evolution? And that's one of the things where, as I understand it, the Rebbe was at a very interesting line between, on the one hand, having a pretty clear formal system of outreach to Jews around mitzvot traditionally understood, on the one hand. And yet, on the other hand, a chunk of the book is at some level the Rebbe thinking about public issues, whether it's incarceration, criminal justice reform, solar power, and so on. And that's, to me, how it then loops back to things like Shemitah, where, first of all, it's kind of amazing that everybody on the planet right now, at least conceptually, understands Shabbat a bit more deeply than we did even 10 years ago, because everybody understands what it is to be online all the time. And so the notion of saying, let's be switched off one day in 7, suddenly potentially makes sense to an awful lot of people and not just traditionally observant Jews. because the question of how we control our technology and not just have our technology control us is suddenly a real issue at this stage of human evolution. That's one of the places where I find Shemitah really interesting, because although everybody's heard of Shabbat, and arguably we introduced Shabbat into human history, here's Shabbat, which is well known. I keep Shabbat, I don't. Like, everybody has a different sense of it, but everybody knows what Shabbat is at some level. Then we have Yom Kippur, which is Shabbat Shabbaton and described as such. And people know what Yom Kippur is, which is at some level some kind of quintessence of Shabbat. And then we have this thing Shemitah, which also clearly connects to Shabbat, clearly also connects to Yom Kippur, is also Shabbat Shabbaton. But people have either never heard of it, or if they have, they haven't thought about it. It's something about letting the land lie fallow. It's 1 year in 7. Presumably it's good for the land. Other than that, we don't really know. In Israel, every 7 years, there's an argument about the price of vegetables. In Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, you know, an Orthodox rabbi gives his
check the bag of
exactly.
Oranges at Costco.
Exactly. So one of the things that's interesting to me is, what are the questions that Shemitah is coming to answer? And what's fascinating about the Shemitah texts in the Torah is each of them is actually slightly different. In one place, it seems to be that the point of Shemitah is allowing the land to rest. In one place, it seems to be that the point is so that the poor of your community and the wild beasts can come and help themselves to that which is yours. Your sense of ownership is no longer absolute, it's relevant. Then in the third place, we have Shmitat Kasafim. And suddenly it's not about land, it's about releasing debts. And what's fascinating to me is that as soon as we start to ask what questions is Shemitah addressing, we realize that the issues it's addressing are real issues for us today. It's addressing work and overwork. It's addressing rhythms of work. It's addressing the question of ownership and what it means to say that something is mine and what my obligations are to you. It's addressing issues of community and boundaries of community. It's thinking about debt and inequality and how we reduce inequality. And as soon as we understand it in those terms, it's like, well, holy moly, this is now relevant to me. This is not abstract. And the last couple of things I'll say before I potentially want to say a couple of things about what this might mean for us. But I've forgotten what I was going to say. I want to say that part of the question should be, given that we start to have that sense of it, are there ways that I can, could, or should be aware of it? And that, I think, leads on to, truthfully, some of the subjects of this conference and some of the places that we want to get to. And I'm happy to maybe I'll give a couple of examples, or do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think it's kind of liberating that outside of Israel, there is nothing that halachically, that Jewishly, religiously, we have to do or not do in relationship to Shemitah. So Hazon, the organization that I led for 20 years, started to do a lot of work on Shemitah in 2007, in the last Shemitah year, in the 2 Shemitah years ago. And very randomly for the last one, I decided that I wasn't going to buy any books and I wasn't going to buy any scotch. This was a very stressful idea for me.
So it was like when you heard COVID was expanding and you bought a lot before. What happened in the years before?
So firstly, I want to say that having a Shemitah year after COVID is, I think, incredibly significant. And I could have said that before as well, because Shemitah is fundamentally about slowing the normal rhythms of normal discourse. And if we discussed this 3 years ago, we would have said, not getting on a plane for a year, impossible. Not doing certain sorts of things, impossible. Not gathering, impossible. We had this incredibly unpleasant, involuntary Shemitah year, as it were, with COVID, where people died and people lost their lives and people lost their jobs. All of that awful. And yet, coming out of it, all sorts of people have also said, this aspect of it was good. This aspect of it was good. Traveling less, being more connected to the people that I care about. So last time around, I decided not to buy books and scotch. This was very stressful for me. And so about 6 months before, I started going around the apartment and taking off the shelf books that I hadn't read but I wanted to read, or books that I had read but I wanted to read again, and I wrapped them in newspaper so that if I would be stressed during the year, I would, instead of having to buy a book, I'd like rip one of these things open and go, oh my gosh, I always wanted to buy this book. Because I didn't really believe that I could go for a year without buying a book. Well, what was amazing was not only did I not buy a book for the whole year, I didn't open a single one of these books. It turned out that I had more than enough things to read, plus The Guardian and the New York Times and the New Yorker and the Jewish Review of Books. And I didn't buy a single book during the year. And it taught me that I had enough. And it reminded me every time that I wanted to, that it was the Shemitah year. The Scotch thing was kind of funnier. It was a little bit like a Shemitah version of a Hanukkah miracle. I don't drink that much Scotch, but I'm English. If you would come over, Rabbi Murray, I would offer you a little Scotch. And so as the year went on, my stock of Scotch started to go down. And I started to wonder, am I going to stop offering Scotch to people when they come over? And then by a Shemitah version of the Hanukkah miracle, in the middle of the year, 4 different people gave me bottles of Scotch. And so my Scotch lasted gewalt the whole year. So this time around, about 6 months ago, I was thinking about it again. And first of all, I decided, again, I'm not going to buy any books. Again, I'm not going to buy Scotch. And this time, after a year of COVID and wearing sweatpants, I decided I'm not going to buy any clothes. We've all got enough clothes. Many of us do. About 2 years ago, I was thinking about this, though, and I realized that I'd missed part of the point. Because in Shemitah, in a Second Temple period, it wasn't just that you were not consuming in the same way. It's that those who had less had access to what was yours. And so I decided this time that not only am I not going to buy books, Scotch, and clothes, I'm going to try and give what I would spend on those in a normal year to people who have less than me. And right now we're 5 weeks into the year, but I haven't bought any books. I haven't bought any Scotch. There's a rumor that members of my family sent a bottle of Scotch to me for my birthday. But I haven't bought any books. I haven't bought Scotch. I haven't bought clothes. And I have started to give equivalent amounts of money to other people. And awesome. The last thing, therefore, that I would say to anybody who's watching this is, I think this is a question for all of us. How do I want to observe the Shemitah year? How does my community want to observe it? How does my shul want to observe it? My Hillel want to observe it? All of Jewish life runs on Jewish time. Shabbat is different than Tuesday. Hanukkah is different than Pesach. And the only exception is Shemitah. And it's an open, generative question for all of us, how we want to mark it.
It's really inspiring that you're taking, from the not consuming aspect, but then to like pay it forward, that you're like then giving that equivalent to charity. Same thing we do like on a fast day, the equivalent of whatever meals I would have eaten or my family would have eaten, like give that to charity. It's a very beautiful application of that concept. And especially in our generation, the importance of giving tzedakah, making sure that everyone who has is just imperative. It's really beautiful.
And I want to actually, I realize I've never had the chance to say this, but I want to offer you something, as it were, in the name of the Rebbe. I was very fascinated in the book by the section about incarceration and criminal justice reform. And John Hinckley had just shot Reagan, and the Rebbe was giving a blessing to President Reagan as he was recovering. And in the course of it was essentially critiquing the industrial prison system in the United States, and was essentially saying far too many people have gone to jail, and was essentially saying the Torah has capital punishment, it has fines, it has arei miklat, cities of refuge, but it doesn't really have a system of incarceration. That's jigsaw piece 1. Jigsaw piece 2 is Shmitat Ksafim, right? Releasing debts during the Shemitah year. And jigsaw piece 3 is this question for me, which I think is a really important question. It's not just how do we observe the Shemitah year now? It's that this Shemitah year is an opportunity to look back 6 years. What have I done in the last 6 years? What have I learned? What has changed? And then to think about the 7-year period from 2022 to 2029, which is a whole 7-year period in Jewish life. And just as Shabbat is both the end of the week and the start of the week, in a sense, Shemitah is both the end of a cycle, but also the start of a cycle. I started to think, what would it be if every Jewish institution, what would it be if every Chabad house, what would it be if every Hillel house set up some kind of kuppah and let people put some money in it, certainly through 6 years of the cycle, and said, we are going to use this as a revolving bail fund. There are people who go to jail because they're found guilty, fine. But there are people in jail in the United States right now who are not yet found guilty or innocent, and therefore they're innocent until proven guilty, who are there because they couldn't afford bail, which is obscene. And so what would it be if we created a revolving bail fund so that somebody who needed money for bail could come and borrow it from this bail fund at this Chabad house, and 9 times out of 10, they'd pay it back, because the whole point of bail is like, you're putting it down, but the court only keeps it if you flee. Most people don't flee. So 9 times out of 10, it would come back, and the person who doesn't put it back, fine, Shmitah Ksafim, we've let it go. But to the extent that on the one hand, the Rebbe was talking about prison reform 30 years ago in a really quite serious way, and to the extent that we have a tradition of Shemitah, and to the extent that what that means to us now in the 21st century, and certainly in the United States, is not yet clear, the notion of putting those pieces together in that way is, to me, really interesting. And I mean, seriously, I hope that the Hillel at Middlebury in Vermont becomes famous, because it becomes the first Hillel to decide to partially observe Shnat Shemitah by saying, okay, I'm going to put 180. If you put in $180, I'll put in $180, and we'll ask some of the students to put in some money, and it'll be start of a new bail fund, and we'll help people in need on the one hand, and we'll observe Shemitah in new ways on the other.
A very interesting idea. So I say on the one hand that like involvement of the Chabad, like to have a free loan fund is something that's a very common thing in Jewish history. Many Chabad houses do have that. Many Chabad on campuses do have that for our students or people in the community. To direct it, I'm just thinking of like it's a beautiful idea. I'm just thinking of the practical, how I would admit, I don't want to be chasing after someone for like bail money. Like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm here for. You need something, okay, so I'll give it to you. But this potentially creating a cycle of like I would love to partner with someone who like that's their end of it. I wanted to just define Shemitah for those who are listening who haven't who don't know. So it says in Parshas Bahar in book of Vayikra, Leviticus, at the beginning of the parsha it says, and Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai. The verse continues, the land shall keep a rest until God. So and what is Shemitah? There's other verses that Nigel had quoted before. We'll just say them again here. That for 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard. And in the 7th year you should cease from plowing, sowing, and pruning your vineyard. There's also, we learn out from Shemitah, also as Nigel has mentioned, the importance of leaving the corners of your field for others to come and gather, for those who don't have. And not only the first wave of gatherers, but we learn in the Gemara, there's also those who come after those who are gleaning the field. Those are the ones who, let's say someone who's elderly or disabled in some way and can't make it to the field as fast as the other gatherers. So that's how long you have to leave produce in your field until that second group is able to come. There's also in the Shemitah year the forgiveness of loans, as we had mentioned. So just to recap, there's a 6-year preparation for Shemitah. In that 7th Shemitah year, there's no working the soil. people still work. If you have an office job, you still go to work. What does the farmer do? The farmer spends his year studying Torah, immersing himself in learning so that he can go back out and is able to produce food for the rest of society for the next 6-year cycle. But where will the food come from in that 7th year? It says that Hashem will bless the 6th year with 3 years of produce. So there'll be an abundance of food and you'll have to can it, pickle it, store it away to last over that year. You had mentioned something I just wanted to go back to. I'm going to step off screen to grab a book for a moment. Excuse me. And it caught me because there's the first book the Lubavitcher Rebbe published, Hayom Yom. And it's a daily portion of sayings of Chassidus. And something that you mentioned is a direct quote. And I'm going to read from the Hayom Yom and move back to the discussion. You asked, what does it mean to be a light unto the nations? Today's Hayom Yom says, the Jewish people are likened to stars that sparkle in the heavens. Thanks to their light, even a person walking in darkness of night will not err. Every Jew, man or woman, has the moral and spiritual power to become a source of influence for his friends and associates and to situate them in a ray of light. To kind of peer over the horizon, the Torah has 600,000 letters. And each Jewish soul is connected to one of those letters. So there's a dimension of spiritual truth that one is personally destined and duty bound to reveal. It says that everyone has their aspect, something in Torah that they really pulls them towards. Some are pulled more towards stories, others more towards halacha, but everyone has something that's pulling them, that gets them excited. And that is what the person has to contribute to the world. What excites you? What are you passionate about? This is something that you should be bursting forth with to everyone that's around you. And it's especially true if you look at this past year of the COVID Shemitah, as we're calling it here, that who is around us, our immediate family, our very close friends. And those are the people who, not in a way that's like, you have to do this. How could you buy this? Why don't you just make the smoothie yourself? How could you? Not like that, but in a way of love, to try to have our spirituality inform how we're living in the world. And that aspect of our relationship, the interconnectedness that we have with the entire world. I'm just going to take a sip of tea. How we have to each other, but we've seen, and especially we're seeing even more with different environmental issues, how really we're all truly very, very connected. An example is with food and food security. And it's not a question that we're not producing enough food in the world. The issue, and it's been an issue since I studied environmental studies at UVM 20 years ago, is an issue of distribution. That the food that's being produced isn't getting to the places where we need it. Here in Vermont, 30 minutes, 45 minutes away, there's areas known as food deserts, where it's not possible for people to get fresh fruit and produce right there. So to go back to the practical versus the moral obligation, something that you had mentioned before, in my opinion, it's a moral obligation for us to learn about these issues, to understand how they're affecting our lives, our children's lives, our parents' lives, and also how can we work within the world, the practical level. What do we do to fix it? This is what I mentioned, we're building a greenhouse here. So each morning when I have some excavators who are here doing excavation, and we have a chat every morning. It's part of their, I guess, also my day now. And this morning he asked one of the workers, he asked me about the name Elohim. He said it's in plural. Why is it in plural? And it was an interesting question, a very insightful question. And it says Bereshis bara Elohim, in the beginning of God's creation. It's plural in Hebrew, not meaning that it's plural like there's two of them, but it's plural meaning it's saying it of something I was doing something. Like, okay, was that clear? Okay. So the interest of, within Shemitah of when the word Elohim is used, which has the gematria of Teva, of nature, and the word Havaya is used, it's interesting how those things, according to Chassidus, represent our different avoda, how we're supposed to relate to the world, our divine service. So we're going to go back to something we spoke about before. The Alter Rebbe says in the Maimer, why are we eating food? And you mentioned tikkun.
I didn't hear you said, say the last sentence.
Sure. The Alter Rebbe mentioned in a Maimer that I had mentioned before, what the purpose of eating food, the purpose of eating plants for those who do eat fish and meats. What's the purpose there? So it goes back to a concept that you had addressed of tikkun olam, that we live in a world of tikkun olam where you could have the interconnectedness of different things. And my role in the world is to elevate those things that are below me, so to speak, meaning that because as a human being, I walk upright, I can speak and communicate with others. So therefore I have an obligation to those levels that came before me. But some choose to express this idea of spirituality as being a vegetarian or being a vegan. Others choose that it's my ultimate purpose is to fully elevate this chicken that I'm eating or whatever it is to its potential. I'm going to then go and learn Torah and perform mitzvahs in the world. The same concept is true when you're giving tzedakah. You're deciding that I'm not going to buy a new bottle of scotch. I'm not going to buy new books. I'm going to give the equivalent to tzedakah. So all your work, everything that you did to earn that money is now uplifted as you're giving the tzedakah. So what is our purpose in the world? Our purpose is the avodah of biurim, of gathering up the sparks. And we do this, one of the ways we do this is through eating and drinking.
So I've got a great question for you because, and this was from our Shabbat table, last Shabbat. And I pointed this, I said, I'm going to do this like the Sanhedrin. And I went to the youngest kid first and worked up. And the Orthodox Union have just ruled that they're not going to give the OU Hachsha to the new vegan Impossible pork. And it's a form of quote unquote pork that's made of vegetables. It's totally vegan, but the OU, because it's called pork, have decided they're not going to put the OU Hachsha on it. And I asked each of the kids, okay, you're in charge of the OU. Would you put a Hachsha on this or not? Why or why not? And I want to ask you, Rabbi, if you were in charge.
Yeah, it's a hard question, not being Bucky, not being fluent with we could say like an encyclopedic or Google-like relationship to the Shulchan Aruch. It's hard for me to make such a decision.
But let's posit that there's nothing at all al pi halacha that's in this product that is not.
So you have to ask the question: why, if that's the case, right? So why would a kashrus agency who certifies all the ingredients as being kosher, when they're put together and put on the label of pork, why would that be an issue?
Right. So that's my question to you. I mean, here's the thing. So the argument in favor of that is clearly, I mean, it's something about whatever it is, but it's something about saying, this is so great, we cannot bear, like, even though this is actually halachically kosher, we cannot bear to put an OU symbol on it because it's like, it kind of like messes with our heads. The place that we got to, the thing that the kids said.
I don't think that's the reason, but
no, go on.
I don't think that's their reasoning behind it. But what were the other, I want to hear what the kids had to say.
What was interesting was that the kids basically said, yes, if the things in it are kosher, it's kosher. And I agree with them. And I think that, and this is why I think but this is why I asked this, because I deeply agree with you. Part of the point that you're getting to there, again, thinking about the nature of Jewishness in the 21st century, for 2,000 years we have asked, is this food kosher? Meaning literally, is it fit for me to eat? And in fact, we're now at a moment that all 7 billion people on this planet need to ask that question. Not necessarily about kashrut narrowly construed, but about a whole range of things where one by one we have learned, oh, maybe this is not fit for me to eat because of the cruelty to the animal involved. Maybe this is not fit for me to eat because it comes in a plastic bottle that I'm going to use for 20 minutes and it's going to take 300 years to decompose and it's going to damage entire ecosystems in the ocean and so on and so forth. And I personally think, in a sense, the OU missed a trick on this, because I actually think, on the one hand, if something's kosher, it's kosher, and you need to say that. And then there is a separate cultural question. If you're an Ashkenazi Jew, strictly kasher Pesach, and you want to put kitniat on your Pesach table, can you put kitniat on your Pesach table? No, you can. You're the rabbi, but I would have thought you can't eat it. You can't eat it. You're an Ashkenazi Jew, but it's not.
We keep a very, very strict. So yeah, it could. So if someone's coming and that's their tradition, so we'll make an area, but I wouldn't cook that in my dishes, and it wouldn't let it into my kitchen. But could someone themselves, if that's their Sephardi, could they have it in my house by themselves? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not chametz. My point is that we have something here where there's a category of something being something that on the one hand is kosher, but on the other hand, I or my family have a strong minhag of not eating it. And so I think that's why this whole kosher pork thing is kind of interesting. You could say, look, it's kosher, but we don't want to eat something
There is like bacon, like the bacon bits that has a hechsher on it. But that's known as something that's imitation. So I don't know. It could be that, there's a concern that someone seeing that will then go and just buy pork.
Leads to mixed dancing.
There is that concept in halacha of the importance of not letting someone else go astray. So I'm a very conscious consumer, so I'll check it out, I'll make sure. But for someone else who's just maybe passing by, and that could be the reason. But it would be interesting if you encourage those boys and girls, the children that you're with, to write and ask them for sources of why they made this decision. It would be a very good exercise in Jewish halacha, practical halacha, for them to learn as children. It's a really cool thing. And if you need a contact at the OU to do that, I can hook you up with it.
Thank you.
So going back a moment to the Chassidus of Shemitah, the Baal Shem Tov interprets the verse, the land shall rest, that there should be a rest, a bittul, a self negation, not in a way of shaming myself or to feel down about myself, but to kind of take me as Binyamin out of the equation. That think of me stepping outside of myself and thinking of the other first. So that goes back to what you were talking about with giving tzedakah, and it also starts to touch on the interplay of what you mentioned in Social Vision, is the influence of the spirituality and the reach that the Rebbe had towards Jews around the world. He also was very focused on all of humanity. And he wasn't only speaking, there's many talks that he gave. And you can see there's some of them are quoted in this book, that he's not speaking to the Jewish community. He's speaking to the American community. And I think to come back to Hazon and the work that you did there, and now I kind of like to think of where your idea of what's next is. There's this, just to reframe the question, the interplay of your quote that you based it on, the Torah is in the world is a commentary on each other, and how can we take these spiritual concepts that are spoken about in the Torah, elucidated by Chassidus, and make them real for us? You gave some examples of what you're doing personally. I watched your Shemitah workshop in the Pacific Northwest. Here in Vermont, we also had talks around Shemitah, of what should we do. And there is, in my opinion, I felt it when I was a non-observant, very secular college student learning about environmentalism. There's this pull of and attraction between environmentalism and spirituality. And we're seeing it more and more. There's almost like an awakening from below of this concept. And I just wanted to kind of open it to you. Where do you see this going? What do you see next? I remember in 2010, you were speaking about the focus that Hazon was making on urban farming and the importance of urban farming. And we've seen the growth of that, specifically in container farming and vertical farming in spaces in the cities that were useless before, rooftops, abandoned buildings, etc. Just want to open it up to you. Where do you see the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I absolutely believe that for any institution, any hillel, any synagogue, any place of work, it's worth using the Shemitah year to actually flesh out a 7-year frame around environmental sustainability from 2022 to 2029. One of the reasons that we don't do more is because we feel overwhelmed. Just feels too big, too huge, and I can't deal with it. And so I think part of breaking through that is to say, let's have a 7-year vision. Let's actually imagine that by 2029, my institution will be cutting edge, whatever that means. 7 years is long enough to really think it through, to learn, to act, to have a big vision, and to take small practical steps. So let's just use food as an example, because you mentioned it, and rightly so. Most Jewish institutions have a kashrut policy. It'll be slightly different in an Orthodox shul, a Reform temple, a pluralistic JCC. What would it be for a Jewish institution to say, we want to move from a kashrut policy narrowly construed to a food policy? And for me, a food policy includes kashrut. I keep kosher, right? Our kitchen is strictly kosher. Friends of Orthodox rabbis eat in our kitchen. So this is not instead of kosher, but it's as well as. In other words, where does our food come from? How are the workers treated? How are the animals treated? How is the land treated? Do we grow any of our food? Do we compost our food? Do we use plastic? Why or why not? Exactly as you said, what are the food justice issues in my community? Are the people here going hungry? What are my relationships with the neighbors? What is my relationship to food policy? What food do we serve at simchas? What food do we serve at kiddush? Do we serve meat? Why or why not? And properly understood, in my view, after 2,000 years of keeping kosher, on the one hand, of asking, is this fit for me to eat? And living as we are in 2021 and understanding about climate change and all sorts of other things, I think that if we use the Shemitah year to engage those things slowly and thoughtfully and bring people together and include kids and include adults and bring in rabbis and bring in outside experts and say, seriously, we're going to move through this as a community. And some of those questions, by the way, are not rhetorical questions, meaning it has to be a real question. Somebody could say, do we use plastic bottles? Somebody could say, look, in general, I don't use it, but like I have Diet Coke on Shabbat and that's my slightly naughty treat. So I think we should still have Diet Coke. And somebody else says, well, what kind of a naughty treat is it if the bottle takes 300 years to decompose? But it's a legitimate conversation. And I think that properly done, that is a way to bring Jewish tradition to life, to strive to be better people and to strive to have impact in the world. For anybody who's watching, and we'll hopefully put this in the show notes and the links and stuff, if you go to hazon.org, Hazon, there's a ton of information. And in particular, we have the Hazon Seal of Sustainability, which is a multi-year process and it's hazon.org/seal, SEAL. I can see Jonah put that in. If you go there, we're happy to have a conversation with you, to literally hold your hands as an institution and start to walk through the process of figuring it out. And I think that's the heart of it. And maybe the last thing I would say about this is, we're moving in the Jewish calendar right now from Parshat Noach to Lech Lecha. And here's Noah, and the word Noach means comfortable. And there's a famous, essentially, argument in the tradition about whether Noah's a good guy or not. And clearly, in one sense, he is. And clearly, in one sense, he isn't. And part of why he isn't is that, in a sense, he's too comfortable. He's willing to save himself and his family, but he isn't willing to argue, as in due course Abraham is willing to argue when God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Amorah, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And in that distinction from Noah to Abraham, I think we really do learn something which is constantly challenging. I'm not saying that this is easy for each one of us. Where am I comfortable? Where am I too comfortable? Where do I need to try and challenge myself? Where do I need to try and challenge my community? And what is it steadily to try and have an edge and not make ourselves crazy, not feel that we're awful people, but nevertheless try in whatever ways we can to live more healthily and more sustainably.
Thank you. I would make one suggestion when trying to make changes in plans like this is you do it in the way of form of a resolution. That for the next week or month, this is what we're going to try, and we're going to reassess. And instead of making hard and fast rules that are very difficult, we have a hard time changing. But to do it in a way of, frame it also in a positive way, as a delta. So if I'm using a plastic bottle, what could I do with the plastic bottle after I'm done with it, rather than recycling it or throwing it somewhere? Could I use it in some sort of green building project around my garden? We built, when I was working with the University of Vermont, taking students to Israel, we built walls for gardens out of recycled plastic bottles filled with sand, and they became a building material. Now it's a useful thing. I also take plastic bottles, you can make cordage out of them. And that, with a little bit of heat, is a very, very strong bond. It's better than fastener than many, many other things. So I'm taking some, so then I still have the bottom of it and the cap, which I haven't exactly figured out what to do with those parts yet, but it's a evolving relationship. It's really beautiful how involved Hazon is in this field, and they're really leading in this area. I just wanted to mention that if you have a question, we have a few minutes left. If you have a chat, and also I wanted just to plug there's a spring learning fellowship with the Jewish Center for Spirituality and Society. And there's a link in the chat to check it out. We have some fellows who are in the program now. And it's a really, in my opinion, an amazing way to be able to bring some of these ideas into academia, to get a stipend to study and to work. And it's a really good opportunity for those of you who are interested in these areas of social action, social change, and the influence of spirituality in these fields. I like that idea of a 7-year vision of what we could do sustainably in our own lives, in our organizational lives, in our communal lives. And it's interesting, it made me think back to like where I grew up. I grew up on a poultry farm in Connecticut. And for my grandfather, his food came from within, a few acres of him, of the homestead that I grew up on. And so, yeah, there were things that came from farther, but that wasn't a regular source of food. The regular source of food was what's in my community, what's in my watershed, what's in my my biosphere? What's within 30 miles, 50 miles of me? And there's also that concept as we're building houses and consuming other. Why are we creating and relying almost with blind trust on some of these different installations and building practices that we see 10 years, 20 years ago, what was is toxic. And you go back another 20 years, that was also toxic. And so it's being used now. Is it good for you? We're not sure yet. We'll let you know in 20 years. But the idea that our first thought is, what could I go online and have sent to me from across the world? That aspect of COVID is something that there was an increase in consumerism. It's just that it was done through these, possibly late at night with the lights off of online shopping. And just because something is available to us doesn't necessarily mean that I have to take advantage of it. I too noticed I had too many, I don't need new clothes. I have enough of whatever's here. And what my wife and I started doing is we started giving away the things that we don't need in the house. And thank God the house is, of those material things, the house is starting to empty. I had one other question for you. And I guess as we close, I usually like to open, but we can close with some form of gratitude. It's a Jewish tradition that the first thing in the morning, we wake up, that we show gratitude that I was given another day. It's a microcosm of a larger concept. It was a birthday. When someone has a birthday, that's the day God decided that we needed you in the world. And every anniversary of that day is I have more to do. I have more, what's my personal mission to accomplish here? Each and every one of us has a personal mission. And each day we have a little check-in, a little 12-word meditation called Moda Ani that we can reflect on. And just wanted to close with saying I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you. My daughter is grateful for something else. I didn't make that out quite clearly. She may be coming over to say hello. But I'm grateful to have the conversation with you. And it's just super excited to be able to share the screen, to hear your ideas and suggestions of how we can lead our lives, our spiritual lives, to inform our social action and change in a way that's empowering to us, and not only to ourselves, but to those who are around us. So I wanted to thank you. And I would love to hear something that you're grateful for.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for ending this way. I'm incredibly grateful to you for this interview and to the organization and the book and all of the work that you're doing. I shouldn't say this right at the end. It's really a bigger topic. I should have said it earlier, but I just want to say that I'm so grateful to be able to be in Israel. I got here just before Rosh Hashanah. It's amazing to be here. It's absolutely amazing to be here. It's fascinating. It's intense. There are more crazy, amazing people per square mile in this country, in this town, than any place in the world. And I not only feel grateful to be here, but as borders start to open up and travel becomes more possible, I entirely encourage people to come here and visit, come and learn Torah, connect to the Israeli environmental movement. If you care about Israelis and Palestinians are doing amazing work together around environmental issues. But I feel so grateful and so lucky to be here, and that's the extra piece of Hakarat Tov that I wanted to add. But other than that, thank you so much. This is fun, and check out Hazon.org if I or we can be of any use.
Thank you so much. I want to hand it back now to Jonah to kind of close out the panel.
Wow, that was just a pleasure to listen to. It was so great to hear you two bounce off each other, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna be taking a lot of this forwards with me. I'm just soaking in it. So I'm very excited about this. If you liked what you heard today or this morning, or I guess I'm on the West Coast, so it's very much the morning for me, but I guess it's the early afternoon for people living in the East Coast. It's later for Nigel and Israel. But come back later today at 1 o'clock Eastern time, we have another panel, and then at 2:15 we have another panel. Like Benjamin said, we have an open interest form for our learning fellowship, which is directed mostly towards undergraduate and graduate students. But if you have an interest and you don't fit into that category, definitely still sign up, and we'll figure out a way that we can be learning with as many people as possible. And yeah, if you want to see more of the conference at interconnectedness.net, it has all of the registration information, all of the rest of the panels for the rest of the week. And on this specific topic, environmentalism, we have another panel tomorrow. Let me make sure. I believe it's tomorrow or the next day, which is going to be really, really great. Let me just make sure that's that day before I say that. Yes, so tomorrow at 4:15 Eastern time, we have a conversation between Ariel Mays and John Erickson, who are also going to be coming from two, there's religious studies versus environmental studies and intersections there. So that's going to be really great. And one of our former fellows is going to be moderating that panel. So you'll hear about their experience as well. So please join us going forwards. And again, thank you so much, Nigel, for joining us, and Benjamin for moderating. And
you should also check out the podcast on Spotify from the previous conference. And this conference will also be on Spotify. 20-minute clips from, not really a clip, it's a synopsis of a whole talk. You don't have an hour to listen to the whole panel. 20 minutes from in the car, you're walking around, pop it in your ears and gain some new information.
Thank you for that. Yeah, those are called Social Vision Talks on Spotify or Apple or wherever you can listen to podcasts. So with that, we'll close out. We can stop live streaming, and please join us again at 1 p.m., everyone.